Some classes spend a lot of time talking about America pre-Columbus. And in this course, we will not be doing that. It's not that that's not important or interesting, because it is very interesting and important, but we just don't have the time. We are going to jump right into British colonization of America. Some classes spend a significant amount of time on America pre-Columbus. We will not be doing that in this class. It's not that it's not important and interesting, because it is very important and interesting. We just don't have the time. Now, don't say that your history instructor tried to hide it from you. The History Channel does that all the time. It's like, what your history teacher didn't want you to know, as if we are conspiring and withholding knowledge for money and power, I guess, or something like that. As if you not knowing about the Coahuiltecans in Texas is going to make me rich or something. That stuff's very important. And there are upper level classes where you can learn about Native Americans, and I highly suggest you take some of them, because super fascinating. But unfortunately, we just don't have that much time. So every instructor will do it differently. We are going to be very briefly going over Native Americans. And when I say very briefly, I mean very briefly, pre-Columbus. What you need to know is the Columbian Exchange. And this is the movement of people, goods, food, products, and for our purposes, most importantly, diseases. The Europeans, when they came to America, they brought diseases like yellow fever, measles, smallpox, stuff like that. And because they brought all these diseases, they will wipe out 90% of Native Americans. When Europeans came, they actually thought that God had like cleared the land for them. And that's why they knew they were God's chosen people, because they found these fields and all the land is cleared already. It's because the Native Americans have just died off. And there are cases of Europeans, putting or giving diseases to the Native Americans intentionally, like blankets with smallpox, but they didn't have to do that. And there are many more cases where the Europeans did not want the Native Americans to get diseases, like when they were trying to convert them. But Native Americans will die in huge numbers. 90% of them will die because of diseases. So the big question is why? Why did Native Americans die at such high of a rate? And it's because humans travel from east to west. In the long history of humanity, before planes and cars and stuff like that and trains, humans traveled on an east to west axis, because when you travel on an east to west axis, you have similar fauna, you have similar day lengths, similar temperatures, similar animals, and so you can travel east to west and survive long periods because it's just easier. So over thousands and thousands of years, people have been traveling east to west across Eurasia, between Europe and Asia, and they had been exchanging information, technology, and diseases. So that's why when the Europeans came to America, they will have much better weapons, much better like steel, and which you get from mixing metals together. They have better weapons, and they also came with immunities. Over thousands and thousands of years, Europeans and Asians have been spreading these diseases, and they have died in mass. Well, not in mass. They had died by the thousands for thousands of years. And then they just came to America and plopped all of these diseases down on this population that had never experienced them and didn't have any of the immunities. I mean, the Black Death alone killed like 1/3 of Europe. So Europeans had already been dealing with this, and then they just took thousands of years of diseases and just wiped out Native American population. It was tragedy. Tragedy does not even begin to describe what happened. This leads to an interesting question. Is Columbus responsible? We have to deal with this nonsense every year. Around Columbus Day, is it Columbus Day? Is it Indigenous Peoples Day? And like everything else in life, this has become political. And it's exhausting. Some people will say Columbus committed genocide. Now, I don't think that is accurate because he didn't commit genocide. The diseases committed genocide. That is giving Columbus way too much credit. So, also, if it hadn't been Columbus, it would have been someone else. The only way this does not happen is if everyone in Europe and everyone in Asia agrees, all right, listen, we went there and we saw that there are Native Americans there, or these other people there. They wouldn't have called them Native Americans. There are these other people there, and we cannot go there because then we'll give them a bunch of diseases and they'll all die. So everyone stay away, occupado. And obviously that wasn't going to happen. So it was going to happen. So saying Columbus is responsible, I don't think is accurate. But the more you read about Columbus, he was just a terrible person. I mean, just a really awful human being. And that's not even me saying this. That is people in his own time. He was so terrible that he was actually imprisoned for his treatment of Native Americans because he treated them horribly. And most importantly, when he died in 1506, he didn't think he actually found a new continent. He was convinced that was in Asia. So he didn't even believe he was in a new place. So I don't think we should call it Columbus Day just because he thought he was in Asia. I think we should call it Amerigo Vespucci Day. Seems like the obvious answer. Amerigo Vespucci. And it's kind of fun to say. Spain will become the world power because of all of the gold and silver that was brought from the Americas. Spain and Portugal will have their golden era. And from 1492 till 1588, with the Spanish Armada, people were convinced that Spain had found the greatest part of the Americas. And England will be so unlucky because they only found that part in North America, which were England or Virginia and Massachusetts. stuff like that. And there was no gold and silver there. So Spain was considered to be the lucky ones. However, and remember this line because I will reference it quite a bit, but the great Otto von Bismarck, God looks out for fools, drunks in the United States of America, because where England actually lands turns out to be the best part of the Americas, because it does not have gold and silver. Because when a nation relies too much on one resource, it is called the resource curse or Dutch disease or paradox of plenty, whatever you want to call it. Same thing. It's when a nation relies too much on one natural resource, then they become too dependent on it. They don't diversify economically. And when they don't diversify, then they eventually go into a decline. That is what will happen. That's what you see in a lot of places in the world that have like diamonds or gold or silver. The places in the Americas that had the most gold and silver today are some of the most impoverished because they create a bad economic system that's not diversified. And that is what will happen. That is also what will happen to the southern United States with cotton, which we will get to later. So that is the very short introduction on pre-Columbus.